This is the Sabbath. This is the ICPK's Baltimore Sabbath Service. Come on. We're going to be starting at 2 Kings chapter 21, verse 4 through 10.
Okay, so what we do every week, first of all, how about sitting there, sharp up the thumb, to all the Akim brethren out there, and Yahweh Shamar, all of them, shout out to all the sisters. Every week, right now, we've been going to the Book of Kings. And last time that we were here, we talked about Hezekiah and how Hezekiah was a righteous king in Israel. So just to review really quickly, when a righteous king would come in Israel, this is what he would do a couple things. Number one, he would tear down the high places. And the reason why he would tear down the high places is because people, according to Deuteronomy, I believe it's Deuteronomy 12 or maybe 16, I cannot remember it off the top of my head, but you were not supposed to make a sacrifice within your own gates. When a righteous king would come, nobody could make a sacrifice within their own gates. They'd actually have to come to Jerusalem. This is the righteous king of Judah, of course, because all the kings of the northern kingdom, they were not righteous, pretty much. But some of the kings of Judah were righteous after the kingdom split, and they tore down the high places so that people could come to Jerusalem and make their sacrifices, like the Most High said. Another thing that a righteous king would do is he would always get rid of the sodomites out of the land. He would make sure that they were out of the land. Those were people that had alternative lifestyles that was against what the Most High said. And then he would restore the priesthood. He would restore the priesthood by sending the priests and the Levites out to teach the people of the nation. One of the reasons why people would go and sacrifice in the high places is because nobody was going out and teach them. And over time, people would actually forget. If you don't, like I said, they don't use it, you lose it. So people were forgetting the law, statutes, and commandments. And so they started worshiping the Most High in the way they thought. Okay, and that's why there was high places. So a righteous king would tear down the high places. They would also renew the covenant. They would also gather the people together. Usually be at a feast time, and they would explain the covenant, read the blessings and the cursings, and the people would agree. So Hezekiah did all of that, and now all of a sudden his son Manasseh is going in his stead, and Manasseh, of course, is doing the opposite. When an unrighteous king would come, what would he do? He would not restore the priesthood. The priest would not be going out, and teaching. He would actually dismantle the priesthood, allow people to worship the Most High they want, allow people to set up high places, and he would do evil in the sight of the Most High. All right, so this is what we're doing today. Now we're going to continue with Manasseh, his son. We're going to be reading 2 Kings chapter 21, 4 through 10 in the Hebrew. Then we'll read in the English. 2 Kings chapter 21, 4 through 10 in the Hebrew. Wabanah, Mazabat, Babayath, Yahweh, Ashar, Amar, Yahweh, Yerushalayim, Hashem, Af, Shamia, Shabaya, Salakin. No, Shamia, I got that right, Salakin. Verse 5, Wayabun, Mazabak, Mazabakwa, Lakal, Tazabaa, Hashemayim, Hashatya, Katazarwa, Vayab, Yahweh. Verse 6, Wahai Vayar, Ah, Bunwa, Ash, Wa'ai Wanan, Wanakash, Wa'aishab, Awab, Wayada'ai, Wada'anyam, Harabah, Wa'aishawaf, Harai, Wa'ayanya, Yahawa, Lahaka'ai Yas. Verse 7. Wayasham, Af, Pasal, Shara, Ashar, Aisha, Babayath, Ashar, Amar, Yahweh, Al, Dawadah, Wa'al, Shalama, Bunwa, Babayath, Hazah, Yerushalayim, Ashar, Wakarathia, Makal, Shabbatya, Yasha'ala, Ashayam, Ashim, Ath, Shamya, La'ai Walam. Verse 8, Wala Asayat, Laha Nayad, Ragal, Yasha'ala, Mun, Ha'adama, Ashar, Nathafia, La'aba Watham, Rakwa, Yashamarwa, La'eshawath, the call, Ashar, Tazawa, Yathium, Wala call, Hatha Wara, Ashar, Tazawa, Atham, Ibadia, Shema, verse 9. Wala Shemaiwa, Wayafa'aim, Manasha, La'eshawath, Af, Harai, Mun, Hagalium, Ashar, Hashamayad, Yahweh, Mapanya, Bunya, Yasha'alam, verse 10, Wayadabar, Yahweh, Bayad, Ibad Yawa, Hanaba Ya'ayam, La'amar, and that's it. Okay, we'll be reading 2 Kings chapter 21, 4 through 10 in the English.
2 Kings chapter 21, verse 4. And he built altars in the house of the Most High, which the Most High said, in Jerusalem will I put my name. Verse 5.
So he's even putting altars in the house of the Most High, which was very blasphemous, pretty much. That's an abomination, really.
Come. Verse 5. And he built altars for all the hosts of heaven in 2 courts of the house of the Most High. Verse 6. And he made his son pass through the fire and observed times, and used enchantments and dealt with familiar spirits with wizards.
Okay, so I mean, he's allowing sorcerers, witches. He's allowing all that, making the sacrificing children, and that also could be, violating children as well. Observe times, into the astrologers. Astrology pretty much trying to be like fortune tellers. He's allowing all of this. Okay, good. So I can continue.
Come. Verse 7. And he set a graven image of groove that he had made in the house, of which the Most High said to David and to Solomon his son, in this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, will I put my name forever. Verse 8. Neither will I make the feet of Israel move any more out of the land which I gave their fathers, only if they will observe to do according to all that I have commanded them, and according to all the law that my servant Moses commanded them. Verse 9. But they hearkened not, and Manasseh seduced them to do more evil than did the nations whom the Most High destroyed before the children of Israel.
Okay, so I mean, the children of Israel, especially in Judah, at this point, were doing even worse than what all the other nations were doing. You see, the Most High got rid of the nations in the land because, and particularly in that land, you have to follow various laws. You know how, and you can think of it like every state has certain laws that you have to obey in the state. Well, in the land of Canaan, there were laws that you had to follow. And if you were not following those laws, the land, like the Most High said, would spew you out. You have to get out of the land. Well, Israel already was put away at this point. Judah started doing the same. They started disobeying the laws of the land. All right, go ahead and continue.
Verse 10. And the Most High spake unto his servants and prophets, saying.
All right, excellent. All right, now we're going to continue in 2 Kings 21, 11 through 17. We're going to read in the Hebrew first, then the English. 2 Kings chapter 21, verse 11. Ya'ain, Ashar, Ashah, Manashah, Malak, Yahawada, Hatha, Barath, Ha'Allah, Harai, Makal, Ashar, Aishawah, Amaria, Ashar, Hanyawa, Wayakata'a, Gum, Off, Yahawada, Wagolwa. So verse 12. Verse 12. Lakan, Ka, Amar, Yahweh, Aliyah, Yasha'ala, Hananya, Mabaya'a, Ra'aiha, Al, Yerushalayim, Wayahawada, Ashar, Call, Shemayawa, Tazalana, Shafya, Azanyawa, verse 13. When a Tayafya, Al, Yerushalayim, Af, Kwawa, Shamarwan, Wa'af, Masha Kwalaf, Vayaf, Aka'ab, Wama Kayahya, Af, Yerushalayim, Ashar, Yamaka, Af, Hatazal Lakaf, Maka, Wahapak, Al, Panya, verse 14, Wayata Shahya, Af, Sha'aryaf, Nakalafia, Wana Safyam, Bayad, Ayab Yaham, Ayab Yaham, Wahaya, Wahayawa, Labaz, Wamasha Sa, the call, Ayab Yaham. Verse 15. Ya'ain, Ashar, Aishawa, Harai, Bayanya, Wayahayawa, Makaisyam, Afya, Man, Hayawam, Ashar, Yataza Awa, Aba Watham, Mamatazarium, Wa'ai, Hayawam, Hazah, verse 16, Wagam, Dam, Nakya, Shapak, Manashah, Harabah, Ma'ad, Ai, Ashar, Mala'ah, Yerushalayim, Ha, Lapa, Labad, Maka Afwa, Ashar, Taya'a, Ah, Yahawada, La'ishawaf, Harai, Ba'ayanya, Yahawa. Verse 17. Wayaftar, Dabaria, Manashah, Wakal, Ashar, Aisha, Wakata Afwa, Ashar, Kata'a, Hala'a, Hum, Katawabyam, Al, Sapar, Dabaria, Hayamyam, Lamalakia, Yahawada, and that's it. Okay, now we'll be reading 2 Kings chapter 21, 11 through 17 in the English.
2 Kings chapter 21, verse 11. Because Manasseh, king of Judah, have done these abominations, and have done wickedly above all that the Amorites did, which were before him, and have made Judah also to sin with his idols. Notice this: the leadership does matter. Leadership, if you are in a lead, if you're in leadership and your people are, going astray, it falls on the leader. It falls on the shepherd. All right, so I can go ahead. Okay, verse 12. Therefore, thus saith the Most High power of Israel, behold, I am bringing such evil upon Jerusalem and Judah, that whatsoever heareth of it, both his ears shall tingle. Verse 13. And I will stretch over Jerusalem the line of Samaria, and the plummet of the house of Ahab, and I will wipe Jerusalem as a man wipeth his dish, wiping it and turning it upside down. So pretty much both sides, just like I had to deal with Samaria, with Israel, I'm going to do the same thing to the tribes of the tribe of Judah. Verse 14. And I will forsake the remnant of my inheritance, and deliver them into the hands of their enemies, and they shall become a prey and a spoil to all their enemies. And this is a repeated pattern. You notice throughout the scripture. Every time that Israel will go off track, the Most High would allow enemies to come in and bring Israel, Judah, into captivity. Go ahead. Verse 15. Because they have done that which was evil in my sight, and have provoked me to anger, since the day their fathers came forth out of Egypt, even unto this day. Verse 16. Moreover, Manasseh shed innocent blood very much, till he had filled Jerusalem from one end to another.
And that's talking about, the sacrificing of children too. You shed innocent blood, to your gods. So that goes hand in hand with it. You sacrifice innocent blood. Go ahead.
Okay.
Besides
Come. Beside his sin, wherewith he made Judah to sin, and doing that which was evil in the sight of the Most High. Verse 17. Now the rest of the acts of Manasseh and all that he did, and his sin that he sinned, are they not written in the book of Chronicles of Kings of Judah?
All right, we're going to continue now in 2 Kings chapter 21, 18 to 24 in Hebrew. Then we'll read it in English. 2 Kings chapter 21, verse 18. Where you shakab, manasha, ayin, abasayawa, abatyawa, where you korab, where you kwabar, so like a bagun, bayahwa, bagun, Isaiah, where you malak, I'm a one, banwa, yawa, verse 19, ban, Isharyam, Washatyam, Shana, I'm a one, Bamalakwa, Washatyam, Shunyam, Malak, by Yerushalayim, Washam, Amawa, Masha, Amath, Bath, Karawataza, Man, Yataba, verse 20, where Aisha, Harai, Ba'ayanya, Yahweh, Ashar, Aisha, Manashah, Abayawa, verse 21, Wayalak, Bakal, Hadarak, Ashar, Halak, Abayawa, Wayaibad, Hagalalium, Ashar, Ibad, Abayawa, Wayasha, Thakwa, Laham, verse 22, Wayazab, Yahweh, Allah Haya, Abba Sayawa, Wala Halak, Hadarak, Yahweh, verse 23, Waya Korasharwa, Ibadya, I'm a one, Aliyawa, Waya Mayatwa, Hamalak, Baba Yahweh, verse 24, Wayat, Ain, Ha'arataza, Call, Haquarsharium, so like an owl, Hamalak, I'm a one, Waya Malayakwa, Ain, Ha'arataza, Asha Yahweh, Bunwa, Fakafyawa, and that's it. All right, we're going to be reading in the English now, 2 Kings 21, 18 to 24.
2 Kings chapter 21, verse 18. And Manasseh slept with his father, and was buried in the garden of his own house, in the garden of Uzziah. And Ammon, his son, reigned in his stead. Verse 19. Ammon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 2 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Meshulameth, the daughter of Harus of Jotbath. Verse 20. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Most High, as his father Manasseh did. Verse 21. And he walked in all the way that his father walked in, and served the idols that his father served, and worshipped them. Verse 22. And he forsook the Most High of his fathers, and walked not in the way of the Most High.
Here, let me make a point too. When Israel would worship the idols, you got to look at this in historical context too. When they would worship the idols, that means they were looking to the gods of the nations around them. So they pretty much were worshiping not only those idols, but those nations that were around them. You know what I'm saying? And they were always, when you follow another god of the nation, you're already putting yourself into captivity, if you think about it. because you're going to follow what that nation says, and you're putting yourself under that nation. So when Israel would look at, would follow after these idols, they were looking at the leadership of the other nations. They weren't looking to the righteous leadership of Israel or to the law, statutes, and commandments. They were looking at the leadership of other nations. And when they were looking at the leadership of other nations, they were following after those other leaders of those other nations and started worshiping their gods. And by doing that, you put yourself in subjection. You already put yourself into a type of slavery. All right, go ahead.
Verse 23, and the servants of Ammon conspired against him and slew the king in his own house. Verse 24, and the people of the land slew all them that had conspired against King Ammon, and the people of the land made Josiah his son king in his stead.
All right, excellent. And now, so we're going to be talking about Josiah in a second here, but we'll notice the difference because the book always points out the compares and contrasts the kings of Judah. All right, let's go ahead and continue. We're in now 2 Kings 21. We're going to be reading 25 to 26, and then we're going to jump over to chapter 22, 1 through 5. 2 Kings chapter 21, verse 25 in the Hebrew. So, Wayathar, Debaria, Amawan, Ashar, Aisha, Hala'aham, Kafawabyam, Al, Sapar, Debaria, Yamyam, Lamalak, Yahawada, verse 26. Wayakwabar, Athwa, Wakwabarafia, Wagan, Isaiah, Wayamalak, Yahawa, Yahawa, Bunwa, the Kathyawa. This is now the book of 2 Kings, chapter 22, verse 1. Bun, Shemana, Shana, Yaashyahawa, Wamalakwa, was Shalashim, wa Akaf, Shana, Malak, were Yerushalayim, was Shum, Amawa, da Yad Yada, Bath, Idea, Mama Tazakwaf, verse 2, where ya Aisha, Hayashar, but Ayanya, Yahawa, Walak, where Yalak, Bakal, Darak, Dawada, Abayawa, Wala'a, Sar, Yumyum, Mashama Alawal, verse 3, where Yahaya, Mamashamana, Asherah, Shana, Mamalak, Ashyahoah, Shalak, Hamalak, Af, Shapun, Bun, Atazal Yahuwah, Bun, Mashalam, Hasapar, Bayah, Yahawah, Amar, verse 4. Ayla, Al, Halakoyahawah, Hakahan, Hagadawal, Wayatham, Af, Hakasat, Hamawaba'ah, Bayah, Yahawah, Ashar, Sapal, Asatwa, Shamaria, Hasat, Ma'af, Ha'ain, verse 5. Wayatana, Al, Yad, Aishayah, Hamala'aka, Mapa Quadyam, Babayah, Yahawah, Wayath Nawa, Athwa, Aishayah, Hamala'aka, Ashar, Babayah, Yahawah, Lakazak, Badak, Habayath, and that's it. All right, let's go ahead and read 2 Kings chapter 21, 25 to 26, and then we're going to jump over to 2 Kings chapter 22, 1 through 5.
2 Kings chapter 21, verse 25. Now the rest of the acts of Ammon, which he did, are not written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Judah. Verse 26. And he was buried in his sepulchre in the garden of Uzziah, and Josiah his son reigned in his stead.
Now I want you to watch how how they contrast the difference between a righteous king and an unrighteous king. We'll see the difference of what the righteous kings do. They always do something that's pretty much completely different than what the unrighteous kings do. Go ahead.
Verse 22. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. Come. And his mother's name was Jedida, the daughter of Adiah of Boscath. Verse 2. And he did which was right in the sight of the Most High, and walked in all the way of David his father, and turned not aside to the right hand or to the left. Verse 3. And it came to pass in the eighth year of King Josiah that the king sent Shaphan, the son of Azaliah, the son of Mesolem, the scribe, to the house of the Most High, saying,
No, let me stop right there. Another thing that a righteous king would do is rebuild the house of the Most High. Because these unrighteous kings would come and put all types of abominations in the house of the Most High, the temple. And a righteous king would come up and always put the temple back in order. When you put the temple back in order, the priesthood would be set back up because they had to do certain sacrifices that were put in place. And then they would do the teachings. So that's another thing. Go ahead.
So, verse 3, and it came to pass, verse 4, go up to Hilkiah, the high priest, that he may sum the silver which is brought into the house of the Most High, which the keepers of the door have gathered of the people. Verse 5, and let them deliver it into the hand of the doers of the work, that they the oversight of the house of the Most High, and let them give it to the doers of the work which is in the house of the Most High, to repair the breaches of the house.
Okay, because remember, when an unrighteous king would come, they would, bring up, set up stuff around the temple and all types of abominations. You got to think of that, and you got to think of where they would get this from. You got to picture how this looks, and I'm gonna give you a historical example. Islam, okay, before all of a sudden Islam. You got to think in Mecca at one point, the Kaaba, that rock that they go around, that place was a house for all types of, they would worship all types of gods in there. They would worship all types of gods at the Kaaba. It wasn't just Allah actually was one of the gods they worshiped. It was like a moon type god. Okay? That was one of them. So you got to think, because other nations were doing that, Israel would copy. So in the temple of God, in the house of the Most High, they would set up stuff for many types of gods, just like they would do in the Kaaba in Saudi Arabia. Okay, because you got to think that was, that there were nations around them in that land, and they would see what the other nations were doing. They would look at what the other leaders were doing. That's why the Most High was compared Israel to a whore, because she would go after different types of nations and see what they were doing. And actually, I've been reading Ezekiel. The Most High called Israel a fake whore. Because the Most High said a real whore gets paid by their lovers, but a fake whore, it was saying that Israel was paying these nations to follow after their gods. So it's like pretty much like you're a fake whore, not even a real whore. But this is what was going on, and so you got to think Josiah coming in there, and they got places for all these different gods, and everybody kind of do what they want. It's kind of think about it how it's at the Congress today. Everybody has different opinions. Different gods and stuff to follow, different ideas. Well, I'm a Democrat. Well, I'm a Republican. Well, I'm a this. It's all in one place. Okay? And that's how it was going on in the temple. Josiah had to prepare that. Go ahead.
That was it. We stopped at
verse 5. Also,
so can I say one thing real quick? Do we think that Josiah, when he came to reign over he was 8 years old? You think that he became a righteous king because he was 8 and most of his decisions came from the elders?
A lot of times if there was a young, well, first of all, anytime a king came to the throne, or anytime a king was come instead, the one thing he had to do is he had to copy the law. He had to copy it. I think he had to copy it twice. But he had to copy it, he had to read it, he had to study it. I mean, it's just like any time today when you're in training to become a prince or a princess, there's a type of training you have to go through. So the problem is, so the elders, more than likely, that's why he had a good relationship with the priest. They probably were teaching him, and he was like, "This is what we need to, we need to follow this." But a lot of times, kings would come, they would hear the law, but you're a king, so it's like I can do what I like. I'll go my own way, because who's gonna really check them at that point? Well, the Most High would check them by bringing other nations in. But Josiah had a heart, for the Most High, and as he's learning these things as a young man, and learning about what his father David did, learning about the covenant, it's like, we need to follow these things if he's copying the law, if that makes sense.
Come on.
Now we're going to 2 Kings chapter 5. I'm sorry, Salaki. 2 Kings chapter 22, and we're reading verses 6 through 12 in the in the Hebrew first. 2 Kings chapter 22, verse 6 in the Hebrew. Korash young. When you're young. The Darian. Kwanawaf. Aitazayam. When Bunya. Makatazah. Kazak. Abaya. Verse 7. La'a. Yakashab. Avdam. Ahakasa. Hanathan. Al. Yadam. Kaya. Ba'amawana. Aishayam. Verse 8. Waya Amar. Halakway Yahawah. Hakahan. Hagadawal. Al. Shapan. Sapar. Hadawara. Mataza Ahya. Babaya. Yahala. Waya Dun. Halakwaya. Hasapar. Al. Shapan. Waya Kora Hawa. Verse 9. Wayaba'a Shapan Hasapar Al Hamalat Wayashab Hamalat Debar Wayamar Hafayakwa Ibad Yaka Hakasa Hanamataza Babayah Wayahana Al Yad Aishaya Hamalaka Hamapakwadyam Bayah Yahawa. Verse 10. Wayagad, Shapan, Hasapar, Lamalak, Lahamar, Sapar, Nathan, Laya, Kala Kwaya, Hakahan, Wayakwara Hawa, Shapan, Lapanya, Hamalat. Verse 11. Wayahaya, Kashamai, Hamalat, Af, Dabaria, Sapar, Wara, Wayakorai, Af, Gadyawa, verse 12, Wayatazawa, Hamalat, Af, Halakoya, Hakahan, Wa Af, Akiquam, Bun, Shapan, Wa Af, Aikabawar, Bun, Mayakya, Wa Af, Shapan, Hasapar, Wa Af, Aishaya, Ibad, Hamalat, La Amar, and that's it. All right, we're going to be reading now. We're going to be reading now 2 Kings chapter 22, 6 through 12 in the English.
Now we're going to be reading 2 Kings chapter 22, verse 6. Unto carpenters and builders and masons, and to buy timber and hew stone to repair the house. Verse 7. Howbeit there was no reckoning made with them of the money that was delivered unto the hand, because they dealt faithfully. Verse 8. And Hilkiah the high priest said unto Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the law in the house of the Most High. And Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan, and he read it. Verse 9.
Now here's the thing. It's like because there were so many gods and all that throughout the house and all these abominations, the Most High's law was just forgotten. You know what I'm saying? It was just, it was just pretty much discarded. And that's why I said it's important. That's why leadership is important, righteous leadership. Because people, people that are teachers know this, students forget really quickly. Or people just forget really quickly, or people that have children. Your children forget quickly. You always got to remind them. Didn't we talk about this before? Well, if you let people just do what they want, or there's no line in the sand, they're going to forget. And people weren't remembering the law, statutes. The book of the law was not being read. The people weren't learning. This is what happens when there's when these unrighteous kings were in place. Go ahead.
Don't come. Verse 9. And Shaphan the scribe came to the king and brought the king word again and said, Thine servants have gathered the money that was found in the house and have delivered it unto the hand of them that do the work, that have the oversight of the house of the Most High. Verse 10. Shaphan the scribe sued the king, saying, Hilkiah, the priests have delivered me a book, and Shaphan read it before the king. And it came to pass, when the king had heard the words of the book of the law, that he rent his clothes. Verse 12. And the king commanded Hilkiah the priest, and Ahiakim the son of Shaphan, and Akbor the son of Micaiah, and Shaphan the scribe, and Azahiah, a servant of the king, saying.
Excellent. So you got to think about it too. Now, you got to think about it. Now, Josiah, this is now, and I said earlier too, that a righteous king would have to copy the law or copy the commandments, copy the statutes. But obviously here, Josiah he did righteous before the Most High, more than likely because the elders taught him about the righteousness. So, because you got to think back then too, when a lot of people just didn't pick up a book and read it. A lot of people, back then things were taught orally. So Josiah from a young age was orally taught the law, more than likely. Okay, I wasn't back there per se, but more than likely was taught the law orally and was, going after the law, but he heard the righteousness of it. Here, they actually got a literal copy of the book, okay? And as they're reading the law, Josiah rents his clothes because he's like, man, we are not doing what we're supposed to do as a nation. The nation's off track. You got to think of when he's here, when the law is actually being read to them. Everybody just couldn't order a book from Amazon back then. I'm sure everybody knows that, but I'm just making a point. So, the copy of the law, which would be in the hands of usually scribes and something, when it's read, all the intricacies that was read, Josiah is really hurt by this. He's discouraged because he's like, man, we really have not been following the law, statutes, and commandments. Okay, and that was the heart of a righteous king. And here's another thing to add. The law was just not even read. It wasn't read that much that when an unrighteous king comes, they discarded it, so nobody even heard the law being read, like literally being read. Nobody heard it being read to them literally. So you got to think about that too. And like I said before, the law was supposed to be read usually Shalom. The law was usually supposed to be read at the feast time. When everybody would gather together, it's supposed to usually at the Feast of Tabernacles, maybe Passover, or the Feast of Weeks. The law was usually read, before everybody. But if you're not keeping the feast, because you're going after other gods, are you going to hear the law being read? Absolutely not. You're not going to hear it being read. So, Josiah, probably from a young age, had the law taught to him orally, but this is the first time he's obviously, heard the law being literally read to him. So probably at this age, he'll probably end up copying it. Usually, when there was a righteous king and they had the law, like I said before, they would copy it. Right here, this is the first time it was read to him. All right? Let's move on. Let's go to 2 Kings chapter 22, 13 through 19 in the Hebrew. Then we'll read it in the English. 2 Kings chapter 22, verse 13 in the Hebrew. Lakwa, Dorashwa, Yahweh, Ba'idya, Waba'id, Ha'ain, Waba'id, Call, Yahweh, the Baria, Sapar, Hanama, Taza'ah, Hazah, Kaya, Gada, Wallah, Kamath, Yahweh, Ashar, Haya'ah, Natazatah, Bunwa, Al, Ashar, La'ah, Shemaiwa, Abath, Yanawa, Al, the Baria, the Sapar, Hazah, La'ishawah, Kakal, Hakawab, Al Yanawa. Verse 14. Wayalat, Halakwa, Yahweh, Hakahan, Wa'akayakwam, Wa'aikabawar, Washapan, Wa'aishoya, Al, Kalada, Hanabaya, Ashah, Shalom, Ban, Thakwawath, Ban, Karakas, Shamar, Habagadium, Wahaya, Slakin, Wahaya, Wayaha, Slakin, Wahaya, Slakin, Yeshabath, Yerushalayim, Vamashana, Wayadabarwa, Aliyah, verse 15, Watha Amar, Aliyaham, Ka, Amar, Yahweh, Alahaya, Yasha'ala, Amarwa, La'ayash, Ashar, Shalak, Afkam, Aliyah, verse 16, Ka, Amar, Yahweh, Hananya, Mabaya'ah, Ra'aiha, Al, Hamakawam, Hazah, Wa'al, Yashab, Yahweh, Af, Kal, Dabaria, Hasapar, Ashar, Korah, Malak, Yahawada. Verse 17. The Kaf, Ashar, Izabwan Naya, Waya Qatarwa, Alahayim, Akarium, Lama Ain, Aka'ai Waka'ai Sanya, selected Wakal, Ma'aisha, Yadaham, Wanatazata, Kamatya, Mama Kowam, Hazah, Wala'a, Fakaba, verse 18. Wa'al, Malak, Yahawada, Hashalak, Afakam, Ladarash, Af, Yahawah, Ka, the Amarwa, Aliwa, Ka, Mar, Yahawah, Aliyah, so like Alahaya, Yasha'ala, Hadabarium, Ashar, Shama'ith, verse 19. Ayan, Rak, Lababka, with a Kana'ain, selected, with a Kanai, selected, Mapanya, Yahweh, Vashamaika, Ashar, the Barathya, Al, Kama Kwawam, Nazar, Wa'al, Yashab, Yawa, Lahayawas, Lashama, Wala, with a Korai, Af, Bagadyaka, with a Baka, Lapanya, Wagum, Anakia, Shama'aitia, Na'am, Yahweh, and that's it. Okay, we'll be reading 2 Kings chapter 22, 13 through 19. We'll be reading it in the Hebrew first.
2 Kings chapter 22, verse 13. Go ye, inquire of the Most High for me, and for the people, and for all Judah, concerning the words of this book that is found. For great is the wrath of the Most High that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not hearkened unto the words of this book, to do according unto all that which is written concerning us.
So you notice he said, and go and inquire, what does the Most High want us to do? Because you got to think, if they're reading the book, they read all the blessings and the cursings, and Josiah knows that if you disobey the Most High, all the cursings are going to come upon them. So he knows this. He said, inquire, find out what would the Most High want from us. Because he knows that the Most High is not happy with Israel, not happy with all the idols throughout the land, making sacrifices, people pass their children to the fire, people worship the Most High how they want. The priests are not going out and teaching the people. So the people are off. Verse 14. Let's read verse 14. So Hilkiah the priest and Ahikam and Akbor and Shaphan and Asahiah went into Hudah the prophetess, the wife of Shalom, the son of Tikvah, the son of Harhaz, a keeper of the wardrobe. Now she walked in Jerusalem in college, says college, but I don't know if that's pronounced college, but college, and they communed with her. Verse 15. Oh, Shalom, Lord, pray. There's a water too, Lord. Appreciate it. Verse 15. And she said unto this, thus saith the Most High, power of Israel, tell the man that sent you to me. Verse 16. Thus saith the Most High, behold, I will bring evil upon this place and upon the inhabitants thereof, even all the words of the book which the king of Judah hath read. Verse 17, because they have forsaken me and have burned incense unto other gods, that they might have provoked me to anger with all the works of their hands. Therefore my wrath shall be kindled against this place and shall not be quenched. Okay, so they found out through the words of a prophetess what was going to befall Israel, or I'll say Judah at this point, because the kingdoms were separate. What was going to befall them because they were doing evil in the sight of the Most High. I mean, that's how bad. Really, nobody was keeping the law, pretty much. You know, I mean, Josiah was doing what's right, but a righteous leadership also entails not only that you being righteous, but you got to get the people on track. You got to get the people. You got to teach the people. The people have to be knowledgeable of what's going on. Because what I think it was like Ezekiel said in the prophet Ezekiel, the watchman. You know, you got to warn the people of their sins, of what they're doing. You got to warn them and let them know. You know, so the blood will be on your hands. Because if you are in leadership and you don't warn the people of their sins, the Most High will require it of you. Now, if you warn the people, tell the people their sins, then and your leadership, the Most High won't necessarily require of you, require of you because you are telling the people their sins. Okay? You can pick up verse 18.
Verse 18. But to the king of Judah, which sent you to inquire of the Most High, thus shall ye say to him, thus saith the Most High, power of Israel, as touching the words which thou hast heard. Verse 19. Because thine heart was tender, and thou hast humbled thyself before the Most High, when thou hearest thyself before the Most High, when thou heardest what I spake against this place and against the inhabitations thereof, that they should become a desolation and a curse, and has rent thine clothes and wept before me, I also have heard thee, saith the Most High.
Okay, so this shows that one man can make a difference, though. Yahushua was a man that made a difference. Esther was a sister that made a difference. So one person can make a difference. One person can turn the hearts of the Most High from destroying a whole nation. The Most High, remember when Most High was about to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, he told Abraham, if just 10 righteous men are there, I won't destroy it. He couldn't even find 10 in that city, or in those cities, actually. You got to think, it wasn't just Sodom and Gomorrah, it was really 2 others, really 4 total. They couldn't even find 10 righteous people in all those cities combined. Now, a city anciently wasn't as big as, we'd say like New York, but you got to think, you can't even find 10? That's pretty bad. That's a
Didn't Abraham go back and ask the Most High if you can find like 5 after that?
We got that when we first started at 50. Okay. And he talked it down. He said, well, what about 40, 30? You know, he got the lowest he got was for 10. You couldn't find 10. So I won't even destroy it for 10's sake. And now merciful to the Most High, he found Lot. And then so they brought Lot and them out of there because of Lot's righteousness. You got to think of a one man's righteousness or a woman's righteousness can make a difference. And so because of Josiah's heart to want to turn towards the Most High, and once he had a heart for the Most High held back his anger. He pulled his hand back to keep Judah to be in the land a little bit longer. So it just shows that your righteousness can make a difference. Your righteousness can cause the Most High not to destroy the nation. Or if he is going to destroy, he might pull you out. Like he pulled out Noah. Like he pulled out Lot. All right, let's go ahead and continue. We're on the last one for today. We're in 2 Kings chapter 22. And we're going to read verse 20. And then we're going to jump over to chapter 23, 1 through 6. 2 Kings chapter 22, verse 20. Lakan, Hananiah, Asapka, Abathyaka, Wana Sapath, Krababarathaka, Bashalam, Wala'a, Fara'ayana, Ayanyaka, Bakal, Haraiha, Ashar, Anya, Abaya, Hama, Kwam, Azar, Wayash, Yashayab, Slakin, Wayashayabwa, Hamalat, the bar. We're now in 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 1. Wayashalat, Hamalat, Wayasatwa, Alyawa, call Zaquanya, Yahawada, Wayarashalam, verse 2. Waya'al, Hamalat, Vayav, Yahawah, will call Ayash, Yahawada, will call Yeshabia, Yerushalayim, Athwa, Wahaka Hunyam, Waha Nabayam, will call Ha'ain, Lama Quatan, Wa'ai, Garawal, Wayakwara, Zanyaham, call Debaria, Sapar, Abaryath, Hanamataza'a, Babayath, Yahawah, verse 3. Waya'imad, Hamalak, Ha'im Mawad, Wayakaraf, Abaryath, Wapunya, Yahawah, Lalakaf, Akar, Yahawah, Walasham, Walashamar, Matazawathyawa, Wa'af, Idawathyawa, Wa'af, Akwawathyawa, Wakal, Lab, Wabakal, Napash, Lahakyam, Nabarium, Habarayath, Haza'ah, Hakasabium, Hasapar, Hazah, Waya'imad, Call, Ha'ain, Babarath, verse 4. Wayatazawa, Hamalat, Hala Yahawah, Yahapsalak, Hala Yahawah, Hakahan, Haga the wall, Wa'af, Hakahanya, Hakanaya, Salaka, Kahana, Hamashana, Wa'af, Shamarium, Hasak, Lahawa Tazaya, Hamayakal, Yahawa, call, Hakalium, Aisha Wayam, Laba'al, Wala Ashara, were called Tazaba'am, Hashemayim, Waya Sarapam, Kamataza, Kamaslakim, Makawataza, Layarashalam, Basha Damawath, Quadarwan, Wanasha'a, Iparam, Rayath, all, verse 5. Wahashabayath, Hakamarium, Ashar, Nathnawa, so like a Nathanawa, Malakia, Yahawada, Wayakwatar, Bamawath, Ma'arya, Yahawada, Bamasabia, Yerushalayim, Wa'af, Hamaquatarium, Laba'al, Lashamash, Yarak, Wayalam Zawawaf, Walakal, Tazaba, Hashamyam, verse 6. Waya Taza'a, Shara, Mabaya, Yahara, Makamwataza, La Yarashalam, Nakal, Quadarwan, Waya Sharak, Atha, Na Banakal, Quadarwan, Waya Dak, La Ipar, Waya Shalak, Ipara, Quabar, Banya, Hayain. That's it. All right, now we're going to be reading, finishing off. We're in 2 Kings chapter 22. We're going to read verse 20, and then we're going to read, jump over to chapter 23, 1 through 6.
2 Kings chapter 22, verse 20. Behold, therefore, I will gather thee unto thine fathers, and thou shalt be gathered into thine grave in peace, and thine eyes shall not see all the evil which I will bring upon this place. And they brought the king word again.
Because of Josiah, the Most High spared Israel a little bit longer during the reign of Josiah. And I'll say spared Judah, because that's the southern kingdom. But the Most High said that, because, and why would the Most High say this? That in your time, that I won't do it, but afterwards he's still going to bring evil. Does anybody know why he would still say that? Why would he still bring evil upon that nation? Does anybody know? Okay, because he knew the hearts of the people of Israel. Judah was a stiff-necked people. He knew that what happens, like Yahweh even said, even in the book of Malachi, you strike the shepherd, or the shepherd's gone, the sheep are going to what? They're going to scatter. Or they're going to go back to their old ways. They're going to go back to, they're going to be a stiff-necked type people. Most High knew that. They're going to go back to what they were doing. After your leadership, Josiah, you go to sleep, these people are going to go back and go after other gods, because their hearts really weren't circumcised anyway. They didn't have these people didn't have a heart for the Most High. He's like, they're going to go back to exactly how they were acting. Go ahead.
Going down, verse 23, verse 1. 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 1. And the king sent, and they gathered unto him all the elders of Judah and Jerusalem. Verse 2. And the king went up into the house of the Most High, and all the men of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets and all the people, both small and great.
Okay, so does anybody know before we read it, why is he gathering all the people up together? What does a righteous king always do? When he's righteous, he always does what? Go ahead.
He teaches the people.
He teaches people what?
The law.
He teaches the law. And what do the people have to do? Because he's doing something.
They review the law?
They review it. He's renewing the covenant. Because the people got to agree. It's just like, you renew a contract. He's renewing the covenant with the people. So the king would gather all that. And usually it was at a feast time. You got to think, use the Feast of Tabernacles. Everybody be there. And they would read the law and the hearing before the people. And the people, verbally, they didn't have a signature like we did, right? I agree, since I agree. They would verbally say it, just like they said it on Mount Sinai. Everything the Most High says, what? What they said, we will what?
Do.
We will do. So when the righteous king or the priest would read it, he would read the blessings and the cursings. It's just like when you have a contract. Just think about when you are renting an apartment, have a house. They give you the guidelines. If you do not, if you're smoking, you're lighting a candle, you got overnight desks, this contract will be what? Terminated. Or whatever. You can be put out, you'll be put out of our apartment complex. These are the guidelines. You got to think, reading the blessings and the cursings. And then every time they read the blessings and the cursings, there was a small word, if. That word really made a big difference. If you do this, if you obey me, these things will follow. Those are the blessings. If you obey me, the blessings were always a lot shorter than the curses were always paragraphs long. Okay, if you obey me, you'll be the head, you're not the tail, your enemies will flee for you. However, if you do not obey me, and you just read all of Deuteronomy 28, it's like, a few pages. That's, all those verses. Okay, or Leviticus 26. So he's reading it now. You got to read the law. Keep going.
And he read in their ears all the words of the book of the covenant which was found in the house of the Most High.
Let me add another thing. Now, somebody tell me, when they're reading the words, who was helping the king read a word that explains the people? Because you got to think, they didn't have like microphones back then. You got to think. So you got to think historically what was happening when the law was being read. They were getting assistance by who? Go ahead.
The priests and
The Levites would be in and around the people, helping explain what is going on. You got to think about this historically. So there's a lot going on. You had the priests and the Levites, the teachers, explaining the law. Because you got to think, people might be asking questions like, I don't understand that. What does that mean? And the priest and Levite, now I don't know how exactly, I'm not saying they're like, okay, everybody count off by threes and groups over here. I'm not saying I wasn't there. But you got to think historically how this would have been going on. You had the priests scattered throughout, and they're explaining and they're teaching so the people could understand. Because when people walk away, you got to understand the contract before you agree, right? Like that's why people say, well, hire a lawyer. Like you think a Levite, lawyer. Somebody's going to explain the law to you before you agree to it. So you got the Levites and the priests, and they're explaining, and the people are like, oh, I get that. Okay, now I understand. Yes, everything the Most High says we'll do. Go ahead.
Verse 3. And the king stood by a pillar and made a covenant before the Most High to walk after the Most High and to keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes with all their heart and all their soul, to perform the words of this covenant that were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant.
Okay, they agreed to it. Go ahead.
Verse 4. And the king commanded Hilkiah, the high priest, and the priests of the second order, and the keepers of the door, to bring forth out of the temple of the Most High all the vessels that were made for Baal, and for the groove, and for all the host of heaven.
You got to think all these gods and all these altars that were in the house of the Most High. They were in that. That's really blasphemous. But the best way to think about, like I said, historically, because I love history, think about that's how the Kaaba looked. There's all these different gods, and they go in there and they worship all these different gods. Whatever. Or think about modern days. Think about Congress. All these people going in there with different opinions. Or think of Rome. This is like the Senate. All these people come in, and they're saying their opinions, and they're saying their piece. It's like you never come to a, and then people voting on things. Well, I think it's this. Go ahead.
And he burnt them all without Salat. And he burnt them without Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and carried the ashes of them unto Bethel.
Can anybody explain why he burned them? Anybody know why?
You want to listen?
Okay, well, you got to think about it. It's in the book of the law. You shall tear down their altars. You should completely get rid of them. Okay, this is in the law. See, when they read the law, you can't just keep the idols just sitting around.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta really demolish them. You gotta cast down their altars. This is in, I think, Exodus 23. You gotta tear maybe Exodus 32 as well. You gotta tear down their. You can't even mention their names. These gods can't even be on your lips. Okay. Well, the way to do that is they gotta be completely out of the land, completely demolished. Okay, so that people won't have a memory. Because if you leave them around, God's selling some gods down the street, people are going to be curious. What's this God about? You know what I'm saying? Why don't we hear what this God has got to say, or this, or this culture has got to say? Well, what about them? Okay, go ahead.
And he put, verse 5, and he put down the idolatry.
Idolatrous.
And he put down the idolatrous priests, whom the king of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high place in the cities of Judah, and in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burn incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the planets, and to all the host of heaven. Verse
Stop,
6.
stop right there. Can anybody explain what does he mean? He put down the idolatrous priest. What does that mean?
That's it.
What does he mean? What do you do with them? Oh,
Meaning he unalived the priests
there we
that
go.
were
There we go.
that were promoting like
He unalived them. Yeah.
worship of outside.
And who did? Who else did that? Can you remember any other famous prophet that did that? That a righteous king will come and do this. Well, Elisha did the same thing. Remember, he unalived the prophets of Baal. So a righteous king not only because you got to think an unrighteous king would come and he would set up his own priesthood. Set up his own priesthood, set up his own, but a righteous king would unalive those priests because you got to think these priests were teachers, so they're going to teach in a way that they felt. All right, go ahead. Got one more verse.
Verse 6. And he brought out the groove out of the house of the Most High without Jerusalem into the brook Kindred and burnt it. And burnt it at the brook Kindred, and stamped it small to powder, and cast the powder thereon upon the graves of the children of the people.
Excellent. Right. Next week we'll continue about Josiah's reign. All right. Just the people up here. Imani. All right, Mops like.
Ya Ashala. La Yashala. Amadi and Wapaya Hakwadam, which means rise and face the east. We're going to be reading the Lord's Prayer, first in the Hebrew, then in the English. Abanawa. Shabbat Shemayim. Wadah. Ayah. Shikah. Yahweh. Malak. Ratatai. Tazayaka. Hayah. Aisha. Aratiza. Kawa. Hayah. Shemayim. Nathanaw. Lakam. Ho. Yawam. Wasalak now. Kabawak now. Kasalak now. Kabawak now. Wala'a. Dabaya now. But the Sayawam. A ball. Hawashinawa. Mayan. Ra. Kaya. Laka. Hamalakwa. Waha'ala. Wahatapa'arak. La'awa Ramya. Ama.
In the English. Our Father. Which art in heaven. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. In earth. As it is in heaven. Give us this day. Our daily bread. Forgive us our debts. We forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation. But deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom. And the power. And the glory. Forever. So be it. Psalm which we return. I'm going to prepare to salute the Torah. Yahweh Bashim Yashab Rakyat. Stand up. Amadim Shabbat. Amadim Shabbat. Amadim Shabbat. Shalom. Shalom. Amadim Shabbat.
No.
Real quick, since sure people watching, we'll do that here, right? This. That. How? Bahashem. Bahashem. Barak. Yeah. Stand to the side. To the side. You done. You good.
Yeah.
How about Shem Yahshua Barak Yah?
Y'all Bashim y'all Shabbat Yah.
This concludes the service.
Men of Israel, we're going to give the teacher one courtesy salute. Men of Israel, Amadim Shabbat, Amadim, Barak, Yahweh Bashim Yahshua Barakatah.
Yahweh Bashim Yashab Barakatah.
Yeah, Matah, class dismissed.
You can leave that stuff in.